looking through a viewfinder with one eye and then, looking through the world with one eye, it's kind of goes hand in hand. So this is what I can see, and then this is what I can see with the camera. It's like a whole nother, like another eye. I can zoom in, I can see farther away, I can do all sorts of things.
What's up? Welcome to the See-Through Podcast, a podcast that creates transparency on life with a disability through raw conversations with the disability community. I'm the host, Lance Johnson, and I live in podcasts with the eye disease retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short. In this episode, I talk with Kevin Figueroa, who is a legally blind photographer who goes by Blind Light Photography. In this episode, Kevin and I talk about his passion for photography, how he hasn't let his vision stop him from his passions, his collaborations with other blind artists, and much more. But before our interview begins, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, follow on social media. The handle is @SeeThroughPod. And if you want bonus episodes and exclusive content, join the See-Through Few over on Patreon. The link is in the show description. Enjoy. All right, Kevin Figueroa, welcome to the See-Through Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Last time I saw you was a few weeks ago, and I was at previous See-Through Podcast guest event. Jon Marin's event. This is how we brew it here in New York, and that's where me and you kind of met and chit-chatted a bit. So we'll talk about that in this episode. But yeah, it's good to see you again, man.
Likewise.
Yeah, so you are, the reason I met you at that event was you were a photographer for the event, for what the event was about. So, and you are a photographer and filmmaker, and you are based here in New York. And like me and you talked in real life, not on this podcast, you grew up in Brooklyn, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, so I grew up in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg, Brooklyn for 21 years now.
Yeah, man. You're like the OG Williamsburg person, Everyone.
Yeah, I saw it change from how it was in 2000 to what it is now.
I definitely want to hear more about that. But I think before we dive too deep into any kind of sort of talk, let's just get you to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. So my name is Kevin Figueroa. I am born and raised in New York City. I'm a photographer, filmmaker, cinematographer, and I am just ecstatic to be on this podcast with you right now, talking to you.
The reason you're on this podcast is, one, I like your work. Two, you have a visual impairment. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So as long as I am a fully legally blind filmmaker, and my visual impairment is coloboma, I have light perception in my right eye and 20/200 in my left eye. And what that means is that I can pretty much see pretty well only out of my left eye. And if I cover my left eye and really focus really hard, I can see some things in my right eye, but not much. Okay.
And how long has your vision kind of been affected by coloboma?
Well, I had it since birth, and what coloboma is pretty much like an undeveloped pupil, or its nickname is like a cat eye, and that's pretty much what that is, what coloboma is. I've had it since birth. I really haven't had much change with my vision through growing up, so that's a wonderful thing to have.
Yeah, that is good. So it's not like a degenerative kind of condition?
Correct, yeah.
Cool. All right, so yeah, you grow up, you have this visual impairment, but obviously you're drawn towards photography. Which came first, photography or film?
Photography.
Okay.
Photography came first. I learned photography first, and then I learned filmmaking.
Okay. So as someone with a visual impairment, and speaking personally, it's like I am a video editor, but I have retinitis pigmentosa, and sometimes I get strange looks or of why I went into the career I went into. So as someone with a visual impairment, have you had any events like that where it's like, do you ever get asked why or you picked your career field?
Um, I think, well, it's kind of a hard question to answer. I've had multiple people more curious and more, you know, really surprised that I was doing something in a visual field that
Yeah.
is so visually like, you need to see what you're doing to, to do it, to do the product. Um, but I guess it was pretty much throughout my middle school and high school is when I started like learning photography and figuring out, okay, this is what I need to learn, and this is what I know what I can see and what I can't see. So I, started adapting and started to find my own way to do things.
Yeah, yeah. So, because I think, and I have a theory, is when you're more like cognitively aware of you have some sort of a visual impairment, that I think you are more, you're like hyper aware of the visuals of the world.
Yeah, I would say, when looking through my viewfinder on my camera, I would, I'm extra focused on what's in frame and what's being photographed or filmed.
Yeah, and I think it gives you a unique perspective, or I guess the word that photographers use is an eye for what you're doing. An eye for photography
Yeah.
is because let's say when you're not looking through your viewfinder, the way you view the world is very unique, and you probably see things differently in a different light. You maybe in terms of your light perception and whatnot, and it probably, your normal perception probably gives you inspiration for when you are looking through the viewfinder,
Right. Yeah, especially like looking through a viewfinder with one eye, and then looking through the world with one eye. It's kind of goes hand in hand. You know, looking through a viewfinder with that like perspective of like, okay, so this is what I can see, and then this is what I can see with the camera. It's like a whole nother like another eye. I can zoom in, I can see like, farther away, I can do all sorts of things.
Okay. Yeah, I just find that fascinating, man. It's like, I think photography and filmmaking and cinematography, they that's what's cool about, they're so visually heavy, and there's a
Yeah.
million ways to film one thing. There's endless ways, and it's all down to personal choice of the person behind the lens,
Yeah.
and I think, because I used to shoot video myself whenever I was working in North Carolina before I moved to New York. I was more of like a one-man band kind of thing, where I would work for like a small ad agency, and I would be their video producer slash editor. I guess you could call it predator. I'm not the biggest fan of that phrase, but so yeah, I would have to, light, shoot, roll sound, sometimes multiple camera angles myself, and that's kind of when I got into photography, because whenever I went to film school, I was more interested in directing and screenwriting and kind of the creative storytelling aspect.
Right.
But you get out in the real world, and you're like, all right, well, how do I make a living doing this? So
Yeah.
So I found a job at an ad agency, and I started, basically I worked up from there. But yeah, I was behind the camera for a long time, basically until I moved here to New York. And that's kind of part of the reason I was starting to slow down behind the camera. Like, because with RP it affects your vision in low light mostly, and that's how currently that's what affects my vision the most is low light. My peripheral vision is diminished a little bit, but I'm not legally blind or anything. But on set, when it got dark, how it gets on set, and it gets dark, and you got all these light stands everywhere. You got audio equipment, you got cameras on tripods, and it's all very expensive. And I just I feel like I have a good eye for it, but I just was starting to slow down, and I saw the longevity of doing that kind of being taken away from me. So I just kind of switched to editing because it's something I can do, just on my computer. But I think what's neat about what you're doing is your vision isn't degenerative, and so you feel like you have a good handle and grasp on your field of view, and you're able to adapt and still be a photographer and cinematographer. Do you have any concerns about your future in this career field? And if you do, are they related? Are they related to your vision, or are they just related to or are they just general concerns? Because I definitely have those too.
I mean, yeah, there are definitely general concerns. Absolutely, whether work comes in, whether I get hired for events and stuff like that. That's always on my mind. Always trying to find work. Always trying to continue and grow my portfolio. When it comes to like my vision, it's I know that it won't decrease in the future. I mean, it might because of age and stuff and other factors like that. But while being on set, I recently just did a shoot for one of my friends, and being on set and being in darkness and having light stands and C stands and 100-degree lights above you and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I find it fairly easy to walk around and maneuver through the darkness. I'm more more conscious, more self-aware. Okay, I know where I'm standing, where my feet are going to be placed. Making sure I'm not tripping over light stands and stuff like that. So I'm very self-aware of what I'm doing on set and in that collaborative field.
Yeah, you got to be self-aware just in general on those sets. But, and I think, and I remember I used to kind of make mental maps of the sets and where stuff was. Mm-hmm. And that was really helpful. Do you feel like you are a master at mental mapping where lights are and whatnot?
Pretty much. So in my shoot, in the last shoot that I've done, I was a gaffer. And that's pretty much setting up lights and setting up C-stands and floppies and flags and all sorts of things. So, as I'm the one setting it up, so I remember where those things are, and I have a good memory of where things are placed on set, unless things are getting moved around, and then but
cool, yeah, and I didn't know you gaffed. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I've actually gaffed a few short films for friends, because I used to work at a little Screen Gym studio in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I worked in the lighting and grip department there. And basically, I would help prepare like packages for TV shows and films that were shooting in the city, and they would come by and pick them up. So they would give me like a list. They'd be like, "All right, we need 3 18Ks, this many." Stingers or
if you need a lunchbox or
Avenger stands and all these technical things, and I would have to put those on pallets, and then people would come by and pick them up. But through that, I did get some work as electrician. But I'll be honest with you, I was not good. I just wasn't confident. I felt like, and maybe it was the RP, because at that time, I think that was when my RP was starting to creep in, and maybe I just didn't attribute it to it because, those sets are dark, and then they're wanting me to set up these equipment, and I don't know, it wasn't for me. I quickly switched over and I started being like a PA. because I was like, oh, maybe I'll go down in the AD department. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to do the days. I don't want to become an AD enough to work the like massive amount of days they have to work to become eligible for the Directors Guild.
Yeah.
So then I was like, you know what? That's when I looked for other jobs, and that's when I found, those video producer editor jobs, and I've been happy with that. And then that led to editing, but yeah, I think it affects us, and but I also at the same time I think it helps us in a lot of ways, because I think it makes us more, like I said at the beginning of this interview, it makes us more appreciative of getting a good visual, because
we're definitely as you said, like super hyper focused on like what we're doing at that current time. Again, whether that is setting up a C stand or just setting up the camera for the shot, we're making sure that everything's right. We're double checking, triple checking, and just to be sure.
Yeah. And when it comes to like moving the camera, like if you wanted to go, let's say handheld or on like a steady cam or anything like that, do you embrace camera movement, or do you try to keep everything locked down?
Well, personal style, I really like moving the camera, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends on like what, if it's my own personal film or something, I might, write in that, the camera's always moving or something. But depending on like, the film, and if it's, worth moving the cameras or just have it on sticks, it's based on, what the scene needs.
Yeah, I didn't know, because, maybe, if you had to focus on, a lockdown visual, maybe that was more beneficial to you, or moving the camera. So yeah, it's good to know. It seems like basically what you're telling me is you're badass and you can do whatever you want to do when it comes to cinematography.
I love being behind the camera. I love, physically moving the camera, having a shoulder rig or an easy rig or whatever the case may be. I will say that I absolutely will love having follow focus pullers for me, because that's like the best thing I just have.
Yeah.
Especially in moving shots, having someone separate other than me pulling focus is like ideal.
Yeah. For those who don't know what Kevin's talking about, is, someone basically, and I don't know, this podcast is really becoming like a how-to film. I'm fine with it. But pulling focus basically is a job that the second camera assistant does on set, and they basically control what's in focus. So if the camera is moving, the camera operator can't really pull focus or change the focus while moving the camera. So someone else is doing that. You typically wirelessly looking at a monitor and making sure everything's in focus, which lets the person using the camera operator kind of move freely, exactly. And just kind of focus on composition. So,
exactly.
So yeah. Boom, man! I'm teaching people stuff on this episode.
People. Yep.
So right on. Let's talk a little bit about some projects. So we established that what you do. We established how you do it. We established why you do it. I mean, I guess we kind of established why you do
filmmaking.
it. Yeah, why photography? Why filmmaking?
I guess this would be perfect to go back into my background of how it all started. So in middle school, my math teacher was had a DSLR. I think it was like a Nikon D5600 or something like that.
Okay.
And she in my middle school and high school, we had constant or not constant annual concerts, winter and spring concerts and stuff like that. And one of these concerts, I saw her photographing, and I was sitting next to her, and I asked her, "Hey, would it be cool if I could use your camera and photograph?" I don't know why I asked. I just thought it was something cool that she was doing, and I was like, I want to do it too. And she showed me what some of the buttons did, and then sent me on my way. And then I learned what what buttons did what. I'm pretty sure I shot most in like auto my first beginning days.
Yeah.
Like I definitely wasn't shooting manual yet. And what that and basically what that just means is that, you know, having the camera choose your ISO, your shutter speed, and your f-stop. Yeah, just having the camera do all that. That's what auto having the camera in auto basically is. For those who are listening. But also, yeah. So I started doing that more often. I started doing more events. Started covering proms and graduations and other shows and other events and whatnot throughout my middle school and high school. And this was like 2016 from there that I like officially started, you know,
Okay.
constantly like this is what I wanted to do. And yeah, throughout high school, I continued doing that. And then I started doing videos for my high school, and then I started having an interest in video. And then I looked at a couple programs in the city that would, you know, teach video and show, you know, what the art was, what the process was. And I went to the New York Film Academy in, I want to say 2018, maybe 2017, around there.
Okay.
I did one of their programs, and, you know, just basic learning filmmaking, learning what ISO means, learning what shutter does during when you're shooting video instead of photo, because it's slightly different.
Yeah.
So yeah, and ever since then I've just nonstop shooting videos and still doing photography, and then just, yeah, the rest is history pretty much.
Nice, man. Yeah, I had a similar kind of origin to my how I got into video editing and just kind of this creative world. In high school I made some goofy films with my friends. One was called Mutant Rat Attack, and it was about these like giant mutant rats attacking people in my small town of Hope Mills, North Carolina, which is where I'm from. And then we made like this really goofy action film called Live by Flame that was kind of like overly exaggerative in its violence and things like that. But yeah, and then I had so much fun doing that. I was like, oh, I'm going to go to school for this. And then, you know, one thing led to another, and I ended up, you know, in New York doing what I'm doing. And yeah, I think that's what's cool about, you know, all you did was just get behind a camera one day. And you were like, oh, this is cool. And then boom, now your whole life is centered around that. And that's typically how it works. So I feel like there's something to that, like in terms of your passion. Like if something excites you and gets you immediately excited and you're passionate about it, don't be afraid to follow it. You know, I think a lot of people maybe let those moments slip past them sometimes, you know, stuff that it really excites them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I definitely had no clue at where I would be right now when I was, you know, 15 or whatever age I started, you know, photographing. Yeah. It was really fun. I enjoyed it very much. And it was like, you know, this is something that I enjoy doing and that I could do on a daily basis and not get bored of it and not think of it as a job or something like that, you know, or a paycheck. It was, you know, it was fun. It was brain stimulating. It was amazing to, you know, to photograph these things, these different events every day or whatnot, and just have fun with it and capture moments that, you know, other people wouldn't notice.
Yeah, dude. I love that. Capture moments that other people wouldn't notice. I think that's a perfect way to put it. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. And for those listening, long story short on that, the moral of that story is to follow your interest. Yeah, it may turn into a career that you're actually excited about. And you know, speaking of that, I kind of mentioned at the beginning, but you've collaborated with not just one of my past guests, but two So the first guest that I mentioned earlier, Jon Marin, which is where I met you at this event. It was called "This Is How We Brew It," and it was an event put on by Jon Marin, who has been on this podcast before, and good friend of mine. And so basically, he contracted you to do some photography for this project called "This Is How We Brew It," and yeah, I'd like you to talk about that.
Yeah. So me and John have been working together since I don't know, maybe 2018, maybe earlier. Um, I was part of his program, the career discovery program, which
Oh, you know what? I didn't know
basically,
that. You probably told me that, but I didn't know that you were a part of that.
yeah. So I was actually a part of his career discovery program, and he was actually uh, one of the first people to find me a job in a production company in the South Bronx. Um, in my early days of like going to school, doing the eight to three, and then right after, then four to six, go to this production company in the South Bronx, and
Nice.
he pretty much started my passion into video, and then into or got my foot into the door of like being on like actual sets and stuff like that.
Yeah, for those listening, you may have heard it in the episode with John, but Jon Marin, he is he basically is the manager of the Career Discovery Project, which is a internship program that he basically manages, and he has basically the incentive of it is he gets visually impaired students internships in things that they actually want to intern with, because
Yeah.
because let's maybe we can talk about that. So John's Career Discovery Project, how beneficial was that actually getting a foot in the door in the industry through that? Would another program with embrace someone with a visual impairment who's interested in photography and film, or like I guess my question is, do you think that you had to specifically team up with a program designed for you or do you think you would have been left out in another program that wasn't specifically tailored to the visually impaired?
100% had to have found Jonathan Marin and his program. Um, when I was looking for jobs and stuff, or when I was looking for programs to do, because when you're legally blind in New York, you get assigned a commission counselor, which is like a person to help you through your journey into becoming a working adult or going into college. It's just a person to help you, whether that be to finance equipment or to get you specific programs or anything that you could think of. The commission counselor would try to help you with. So in talking to my commission counselor, and she's bringing up all these different programs and stuff, and none of them are really interesting or have any interest to me or to what I want to do. And I found out about Jonathan Marin's program, and it was literally the perfect thing. And I'm pretty sure at that time there were no other programs like it.
Yeah.
I don't think there is any program like it. I may be wrong, but
Yeah.
that program was perfect for my situation. Someone who's going into a field that blind people usually just don't go into. It's not really like known. Okay, like I remember bringing this up to my commission counselor, that I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do film and photography and stuff like that, and that of course I would get support, but programs that they offered didn't didn't have they didn't really know what to do with me in helping me with that interest of mine, because it just wasn't done before. So I would say that I probably did lay some type of groundwork in building the program into other programs being more accessible for having different students with different interests to apply and do stuff with.
Yeah, and I think that's good for people listening to hear because, it's nice. I think the main thing that I take away from that is team up with people and organizations and communities that support and believe in you, and kind of get you and want to back you up and, let you be yourself and follow, your passions, and I think that goes so far, it's just having people around you who are, who get you and believe in you. That's
exactly. Having a support system through my high school was amazing.
Yeah.
I had a lot of teachers, close teachers that really supported me and really gave me the drive to push for what I wanted to do for my career and for my the rest of my life.
And let's say someone listening is having a hard time finding their community to back them. What would be your advice for them to help them find their people?
Right. Absolutely. I would say either, if you're in high school or middle school or whatever the case may be, find a group of people that you may know or may not know and may know that they have the same interest as you and go up to them and talk to them, or find a program that you're dedicated into, putting your actual time into and actually get something out of. Don't just do a program because your counselor told you to. And if you think that you're not going to benefit anything out of going to one of these programs, don't do it. And find something that you'll actually benefit, actually gain knowledge, and actually enjoy doing. And of course, now with social media, there are a bunch of visually impaired, blind people, like group, group pages and stuff like that, where you can find people with same interest and same interest as you, and find anything you were really looking for. That's, I guess, the best thing about social media nowadays is that you can connect with people with the same interest as you, and it's so much easier nowadays.
Yeah, man. It's like a combination of being proactive, but also but asking the right people too,
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously you gotta have a good work ethic and all that.
Yeah, you have to put in the work. When so the Commission for the Blind is an organization in New York that again sets up programs and stuff like that. And a program that I wanted to do that wasn't in their system was the New York Film Academy. I really wanted to do the New York Film Academy, but my financial situation wouldn't allow me. So I pitched to my commission counselor, hey, this is the program I want to do. And I gave her all the documents she would need. I gave her everything she would need to make this possible. And, 2-3 months later, I got the approval that I could apply and that they would pay for it. And it was just, I would say to anyone who's listening, if you really want to do something, put in the work. That's all you have to do. Put in the work. It may not always work, but put in the work, and you can say, at least on your end, you did everything you could.
Yeah, no, I support that 110%. And it's kind of interesting because you just said it started with Career Discovery Project, which was with the help of Jon Marin, and then now as a professional, you are working with Jon, and you were part of this project that he won basically a grant for, and he decided to do this project called This Is How We Brew It. And I may be butchering the details of it, but basically, and tell me if I'm wrong, it was kind of this project that featuring the diversity of the New York City brewing business, all these different breweries and kind of the different ethnicities and genders behind the New York City breweries, which I'll say as a white dude who likes to go to breweries, the typical culture does seem to be, white dudes with beards.
White dudes, beards, long hair, just, your classic, like, hipster,
Yeah, I mean,
you know.
I fit the description. I know it. But
So do I. I have long hair, I have the beard, so, yeah.
So what I think is neat about that is it featured, people behind the scenes who you may not naturally assume to be behind the scenes, and it was basically photography that was capturing these people who make this really delicious craft beer, and your photography. You were the photographer capturing the pictures of these
Correct.
talented
So
people.
I was the photographer for this photo exhibit. This is how we brew it, and it's based on the diversity of the New York City brewing industry, and showing people that you usually wouldn't be in front of cameras or wouldn't be in front of or behind the bar. It would be people who are like actually brewing things and actually like mixing chemicals and finding out like flavor tones and stuff like that, and showing like it's a whole different diversity. It's a whole different world back behind the scenes of people, whether it's canning or the chemistry or anything like that,
Yeah,
And
yeah, super cool, man.
so we did it. We shot the photos throughout a couple weeks, and we just captured the behind the scenes of the brewing, the brewers and what they were doing that day.
Yeah, I love the project, and I think what's neat about it is how many photos did you take again? You told me on the day we met.
We took, so there were 18 selected photos,
Yeah.
and I think in total we had around maybe 3,000. And this is in combination with 5 different brewing companies throughout New York City. So I mean, it was a lot of photos to go through,
Yeah.
and pick out which was the best one, and what are we going to cut and what are we not going to cut, and then stuff
Yeah.
like that. Where it took some time, but we did it, and we did it in a good amount of time and got everything ready.
Yeah, it turned out really well, and what's neat about it is you took 3,000 photos, you picked your 18 best ones, so it's the best of the best of the best, and then you framed them, and then you had a little gallery, and then you had the breweries actually provided beer for people to come through. It was a free event, free beer, free event. See these
free event, yeah.
Well, I mean, what more could you ask for?
Yeah, it was an amazing turnout. We had beers. We printed out the images. We framed them. We hung them. It was an amazing event to be a part of. To have Jonathan put me on to this job with him, and create something that was amazing, and I think that we are both proud of putting our names behind.
Nice, man. Yeah, I look forward to seeing more collaborations between you and John. And another guest that you collaborated with is Ben Fox, previous guest. You recently went down to Florida and helped him with a project, and you told me a little bit about it, and I would love for you to share some details on that, if you're able to.
Absolutely. So I went down to Florida to shoot a commercial for White Cane Day, which is Tallahassee's first. I think it was Tallahassee's first like official White Cane Day celebration, and we shot a commercial for that day and for that event, and then we also shot a documentary on this blind painter who also has RP, and yeah, we're just documenting how he's painting and the amazing artwork that he's producing, and I think I talked to Ben a couple days ago, and I think they have some of his artwork in a gallery in Tallahassee now, which is amazing.
Oh, nice. Ben's he's a cool guy. He's a
Absolutely.
very eccentric guy. And I had a great conversation with him on here. So yeah, it's neat that, what's kind of neat about this is you collabed with John and Ben, and I had no clue about it. And then I meet you at John's event, and it's like, oh wow, we have a lot of things in common. And that, that's why I brought you on. But yeah. So yeah, Ben, you working down there, you're filming that was a video project, not a photography project.
Correct. Yeah, that was a video project.
Nice.
And I was basically I was the second shooter. So Ben was rolling his main camera, and then I was either getting like B roll or being a B cam for interviews or whatever was happening that day.
Nice. Yeah, I look forward to seeing that because, you said his name's Fred, right? The painter?
Yeah, Fred.
He has RP, which is what I have. So I'm always fascinated what other creatives are doing with RP, especially with at the later stages of RP too, because it gives me just like fuel, to keep doing my thing. So I look forward to seeing that project. So you have to keep me up to date on that one.
Absolutely.
How was Florida? Because I know you're a New York guy. How was Florida?
Man.
I've never been to Florida.
Yeah, so I've been to Florida maybe. I flew into Florida, never left the airport. That was the first time I went to Florida. This is the second time. Yeah, Florida was very, very different from New York City. Being someone who's visually impaired and relies heavily on public transportation, it was it was very weird to be like, okay, I can only go this far away without, having to get a car or something.
Yeah.
And luckily, I was staying with people who had cars and drivers and stuff, which was amazing. That I could, go to Starbucks and get something, or go get food or whatever.
Yeah.
And have someone drive me. But that I definitely say if not growing up in New York City, yeah, I don't know. It would be very weird to have to like rely on someone else to, go anywhere that you want to go to. That independence isn't really there in other states as like, New York, where we have the subway and we have this very, very old train system that somehow still works, but it works, and it's I would say it's great for people with visual impairments. I mean, it's there's days.
It's why I moved. It's why I moved to New York. Honestly, like I moved from North Carolina, which is south. It's down south too. Which is just like what you described. You have to have a car to get anywhere. There's no public transit. There's a little bit of a bus system in cities in Raleigh, Durham area, and then also there's a small transit system in Charlotte, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, you need a car to get anywhere in North Carolina. And I gave up driving because every time I got behind the wheel, I was just super anxious because I was like, man, I just feel like I have these blind spots, and that's not a good thing to have blind spots if you're driving around. And I just felt like I was going to cause harm to myself or others, so I just decided to quit driving and moved to New York, and now I'm taking the subway around. It's nice. I can get anywhere.
Yeah, you can get anywhere, and stores don't close at like 5 p.m. We have. Things are just open, things are, you have things to do. You can do anything at odd hours of the day.
So if anyone's listening and they're in this creative field of, the visual arts, whether it's video production, photography, and they live somewhere where they need a driver and they don't always have a driver, that can be incredibly frustrating. I've been there, done that, and I feel for you if you're listening. But hey, just an idea. Think about, living somewhere where public transit is a little bit more accessible. I'm not saying you have to move to New York, but it can be a game changer.
It can, yeah. It's seriously a game changer. I would say, it would improve your independence. It will, you'll feel free. You'll feel free. You won't feel tied down, to your house, or to a certain radius where you can, that or have taken mobility lessons, and your neighborhood. You can go anywhere, specifically New York City. You can go to the Bronx, and in like an hour. It's not that bad, or less than an hour.
Yeah. I think going back to what you said, you got to put into work. Like you put in the work to get in that program. As someone from the South in North Carolina moving to New York, that was a beast, man. Learning the subway system.
Yeah.
And it's kind of scary at first, and you're like, am I on the right train? You might see some wild people down there in the subway system. You might have some strange encounters with, anytime you're somewhere where the general public is, you might have to deal with something that you maybe particularly wouldn't have to in a private location. That's the one difference is when you're driving in your car, it's just you and your car. When you're on a subway, everyone's in your car basically.
Everyone's in your car.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when someone who's new to New York City and sees odd things, whether it's like homelessness or just odd things on the subway, it is a big shock. But someone who is born from New York and has seen that every day, we're more numb to it. We're kind of used to it. It's like, oh, that's just Larry, the homeless guy who lives on the corner. Just you build you wouldn't build a relationship, but you just you kind of get used to it.
Yeah, you get used to it. I guess that's my point. Is it may sound scary to you if you move somewhere from more rural to a more urban environment, but I guess my point is, and you just lock that in, is you'll get used to it after a while.
You'll get used to it.
So exactly. Don't write it off. If it's picking your interest. I think that's it, man. I think that's all I have. I could talk to you for a longer time, but I'm trying to keep these episodes, nice and tight here.
Absolutely.
So Kevin, man, I appreciate you coming on. I would love it if you could plug anything, like you have Instagram handle, or if you have a website or anything you want to promote.
Yeah, so most of my work is on my Instagram. My Instagram is @blind_light_photography. And it's what I'm doing right now is having a couple of documentaries in pre-production right now about a goalballer who is blind, and just tracking the journey of that goalball player doing trying to do nationals, and moving on into hopefully the Paralympics and stuff like that.
Right on.
Yeah, so that's some of the work that I'm doing right now. Of course, again, most of my work is on my Instagram. I post all sorts of things behind the scenes, shoots and stuff like that. And a lot of my photography is there as well.
Nice. And these projects, with Jon Marin and Ben Fox, or do you have any of that content up on your Instagram?
There are, Jon Marin's How We Brew It photos might be up soon, maybe in a week or so. Ben Fox's stuff is on his website and YouTube channel. I think that's just benfox.com or no, sorry, it's if you Google Blind Dance
Studios, right?
Blind Dance Studios, or Blind Dance Film Festival. So some of the work will pop up there as well.
Yeah, right on. And if you're listening, I'll make it easy for you. Just click the show description. I'll have some links down there. Click those. It'll direct you to everywhere you need to go. And with that said, man, that wraps up this conversation. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you here, man. We got to run into each other more often since we're both here in New York City. So
absolutely.